let's start with the phones, Cal. What are you thinking? What do we got here? What did you learn?
Yeah, so same setup for the lineup this year, the Pixel 7 and Pixel 7 Pro, just the two phones. And a lot of it's the same. A lot of it's the same design language. It's got that, that camera visor. But they changed it from last year where it's all metal. It's part of the frame now, which I think arguably looks better than just the glass visor. It was kind of in two pieces, which didn't look great, but yeah, it's got this new aluminum visor now, which is, I think it's pretty cool. It's unique, but we've also got the same screen technology in these phones as last year, same sizes. I think the 7 Pro has a slightly less curved screen. That's always welcomed. I think Samsung did that from their S20 Ultra to their S21 Ultra. So we love that. But yeah, new chip, the Tensor G2. That's exciting. There's a lot of new features with that, and I think that's mainly where the upgrades are, with the Tensor G2 chip and some new camera technology.
Yeah, and worth noting too, before we get too deep into the specs and the tech, actually all of Google's phones, they're saying, are from recycled materials, so that aluminum railing and frame that Cal was talking about is all recycled aluminum. And I guess according to the event, they're saying they're projecting to be carbon free by 2030. So definitely some cool stuff in terms of production and manufacturing there from Google, and excited to see them set the bar in that sense. What do you think about that, Cal?
Well, slight correction, carbon neutral, not carbon free. Carbon free would be awesome. How about that?
Fair
if
enough.
anyone can do that by 2030, applause to them. But yeah, the sustainability part is always huge, and every company is talking about that now. And I'm glad to see Google doing, I think, one of the best jobs of sustainability. And yeah, that's always nice to see.
Yeah, for sure. And they're building quality phones from our standpoint. So, what's the price point looking like? What are users going to be able to get this into their hands, or is it just too expensive like some of the Samsung phones we've been looking at?
So the Pixel 7 starts at $599, and the Pixel 7 Pro starts at $899, which those are great price points for these phones. I just don't understand why there's a $300 gap, because I don't think these phones are $300 different, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that gap really comes from them wanting to get people to switch over to Pixel. I think they're thinking it's a stretch to get people to go straight for their flagship Pixel 7 Pro. So they're hoping if they drop the price of the 7, then maybe people will join. I guess to explain a little bit more, usually you see like $100 to $200 range between phone models. So definitely a little interesting that they decided to go with a $300 difference there. But we'll see if it pays off.
Yeah, I mean, $600 for a really nice phone. That's a great deal. And even the $899, like the Pixel 7 Pro is competing with the iPhone 14 Pro and the Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra. The iPhone's $1,000. The Samsung is $1,200. So I mean, that puts them in great competitive advantage in that area.
Yeah, so someone might think, cheaper phone, worse tech, worse specs. What are we seeing in terms of hardware? Do you think it's a worse phone, or are we seeing something that's actually competitive?
Well, I mean, it's an Android, so you shouldn't buy it. So there we go. Video's over. There we go.
It's done. It's done. iPhone only for the win.
No, I mean, I think this is a great phone. I think best photography in any smartphone. I forget his name in the event, but he said it's like having the power of a DSLR in your pocket. I mean, come on, dude, it's not that good, but it's it's arguably the best photography camera on the market. So yeah, let's talk about some of those camera features, because I think that's really important. They've come up with a lot of new features. Can we first start though with their, I don't know what to call it, but their tactics of trying to copy Apple but hide the fact that they're copying Apple.
Oh yeah, they love it. They spent all this time talking about all these features they've already had, like crash detection and emergency response, deployment, whatever you want to call it.
Always
All
on
these features
display.
yeah, all these things that iPhone has had is just now implementing into their phones. They're like, oh, we've had this for years, and we're leading technology. And then they immediately go into their camera and they're like, oh, look at all these things that iPhone does that we do too now. It was hilarious. It was a great moment.
They go,
But
yeah,
but
we have
yeah,
face unlock now. Yeah, we have cinematic blur. Yeah, we have active stabilization. It's like, wow, you have an iPhone. An iPhone has a Google Pixel.
without green text messages.
Every phone is the same. Don't tell me otherwise.
Yeah,
No,
you're
but
not wrong. Unless it folds.
unless it folds, then it's different. But yeah, so let's get into some of those camera features. So first off, let's just go through the lenses. So the 7 has just a telephoto. I think it's just an ultra wide and a wide. And then the 7 Pro has the ultra wide, wide, and this new 5 times telephoto, which puts it kind of in the middle in a hardware aspect of the market, where like the S22 Ultra has a 3 times and a 10 times, so 2 separate optical zooms,
Right.
and then iPhones have just 3 times, so 5 times puts them in the middle. But they have the software, of course, because it's Google. So they
Yeah.
have
Or computational photography, as they call
yeah.
it.
If you've ever heard that term's used a lot nowadays. So the main sensor is 50 megapixels, and what they're able to do, which is kind of copying Apple, which is fine because it's a great feature. So they're taking the inner 12.5 megapixels of that 50 megapixel sensor, and that way you get a 2 times zoom. So it's like
So
having a
basically,
2 times.
the camera takes a photo this big, and then it goes like this when you zoom in,
Yeah.
so that you get the same image quality without using a smaller lens, essentially.
Yeah, or just an extra lens.
Yeah.
So instead of having like 5 lenses, you just have 3. And then they
You
do
mean
the same thing
5
with
lenses? What are you talking about? 5 lenses?
What are you talking about? No, and then they do the same thing with the 5 times telephoto. They take, since that's a 48 megapixel sensor instead of 12, they're taking the inner 12 megapixels of that, like the iPhone, and that way you get a 2 times the 5 times. So if you can do simple math, which we can because we're engineers, right? I mean, it's not that hard. But 2 times 5 is 10, so you get a crispy 10 times zoom, whereas the S22 Ultra, like Austin has a separate dedicated sensor for that. So if Samsung can just put a 50 megapixel sensor in their 10 times, they can get 20 times. Samsung,
That's
make
true.
it happen.
That's how that would work. The math checks out.
You didn't carry the 3 wrong or anything? You just, okay. That was a stupid joke. Dad jokes, okay. Here we go.
So, what do you think about the features that they love to sell on the Pixels? We're talking about like Magic Eraser, talking about like they call it, what is it, Unblur now, where you can take old photos and make them less blurry, even if they weren't taken on a Pixel. Do you think those are gimmicks? Do you think those are actual features people use? Is this something you would use? What do you think?
So last year they introduced the feature called Magic Eraser, and they also have their True Tone, which is keeping skin tones accurate to real life. And then this year they introduced the cinematic blur, active stabilization, and then the 2 that I think are awesome are photo unblur and guided frame. So let's just run through all of those real quick. Magic Eraser, you basically can use the software to remove things from your photo, like in your background. It's really nice if you want to get like just your kid running around on the beach, or just yourself in the beautiful mountain range without all these tourists in the background. So that's really cool. That's really useful.
Yeah, the example they show is like Kyle was talking about. It's your kid on the beach, and there's an umbrella in the corner of the photo, and there's people walking around on this side of the photo, and it just highlights the people like you've seen in commercials, and then they just disappear. Not sure how it works, but it seems to work really well, and your photos kind of get rid of all that unwanted space or people or things that are in it.
Yeah. And then photo on blur, it's kind of along the same lines, but it's taking like faces, especially old photos. You can only use it in Google Photos on these two new phones. So sorry, Pixel 4 or 5, whatever phone you have to buy the new phone to use this. But it's taking faces like, and just processing it and just making it clearer. The examples they gave were kind of hit or miss, so I'm not sure if they can make it better or anything with software updates, but it does work on some photos. I think it depends on lighting, but yeah, it's just like an extra layer of processing that photos do. So
Yeah, I think from at least from the examples they showed, it can take a bad photo and make it look good, but I don't think it's going to take a good photo and make it look great, if that makes sense. I think
yeah,
that's just kind of the vibe I got, because it can make like a blurry and bad photo look like clearer and a little brighter, but it looks pretty processed, like the more detailed you look at it. So it's not super refined yet, but we know Google's infamous for releasing products before they're totally completed with. So I'm sure we'll get updates and all sorts of stuff that'll make it work better. But it's an interesting feature that definitely could be useful, I think, for a lot of people.
yeah, I'm glad they brought it as a feature because it will be useful, and yeah, I'm excited to see people use it.
Yeah. Same.
One more last camera feature, and then I think we should talk about the watch and the tablet. But guided frame is a great inclusivity feature for blind people. And I guess you can use it if you're not blind, but it's mainly for blind people, where it will tell you out loud through the speakers where to place your phone. It'll say move it left, move it up, move it down, and then it'll say perfect. And then like ding, I think. And then you can take like a perfect selfie.
One face. Move your phone slightly left and down. Move your phone slightly right and up. Ready for selfie. 3, 2, 1. Photo taken.
I mean, who would ever thought that would be
Yeah.
a thing? But that is just like
Yeah.
amazing.
It's amazing, and it's cool to see a tech company leading the way and catering to markets that aren't the dominant market. You know, people with disabilities are a minority in anywhere in the world, and to see them cater to those people is amazing because it allows them to be more independent and allows them to use tech the way it's intended to be used and get the most out of it and feel like free and part of the tech community, which is ultimately what we need. So it's a great feature for sure.